Call the meeting to order.
Here.
Kelly?
Here.
McKinley? Testor?
Yes.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looks like we have one public comment tonight. Sam Anderson, you can take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to take up a moment of your time. My name is Sammy Anderson, and I am seeking the Republican nomination for Circuit Judge in the 6th Judicial Circuit. That circuit encompasses 6 counties. We run in Moultrie County, Champaign, DeWitt, Piatt, Macon, and Douglas County. I've been an attorney for over 10 years now in Champaign. I practice in all areas. I have done criminal law all the way to family law, which is my primary area of practice currently. My husband is from the Farmer City area, a graduate of the high school here in '96. So we're glad to be supporting and representing Farmer City in the circuit-wide race. So thank you for your time, and I would love your support. I would love to be your judge here in DeWitt County. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, section 1 is the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Call it.
Coffee?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
McKinley?
Yes.
Testor?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Section 2 is the unfinished business. I don't believe we have any. Section 3 is new business.
I move to Resolution 2017-33, rescind Resolution 2017-24, awarding bid to start and authorize city manager to rebid for Prairie Ridge Detention basin.
A second.
Call it.
Kelly?
Yes.
McKinley?
Yes.
Testor?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Section 4 is other items. City manager's report.
Okay, I gave you a copy, and we had some technical difficulties. I was going to put it up on the screen, but it's not going to work. We'll try to get those bugs out for another time. But just because I've only been here for a month, and I know there were some questions about where we kind of stood. It is the end of the first quarter. I don't have the update for the end of the first quarter because we haven't closed everything out for the end of July yet. But I'll have that update shortly. But I thought I'd walk you through what I have learned, and so you just understand where you're at. So if you go through, what I'm going to do is do a real precursory, review of the fiscal year. You already passed your budget, so you should have a general idea. Your revenues, your expenditures, kind of break it down by department, and then have some thoughts and questions regarding policy. So the first chart is your general fund revenues and expenditures over 5 years. You are actually in an excellent position in terms of your unrestricted fund balance. That's kind of like your money that is available for anything. Restricted funds are usually things that are set aside. Maybe you have, if you had a bond or something, that's money that you can't spend. This is your unrestricted fund balance, and you're actually in great shape, much better than a lot of communities. This chart shows you over time, as you'll see, revenues is in the red. Typically, you're ending your fiscal years in the black and adding to that rather than vice versa in terms of spending down any of your fund balance. The next chart kind of explains that a little further in terms of detail. I only went back 5 years. Not quite sure what happened in fiscal year 16, but it wasn't that much of a drop. I could do a deeper dive, but I'm not that worried about it. But generally, as I said, now this 16, 17, that of course we don't have the audit back yet, so that might change a little bit. once they adjust, journal entries and whatnot. And then the budget, that's obviously a budget. We don't know where we're going to end up by the end of the year. The next one, again, is your fund balance overview. This is for all your funds. You have your general fund, your enterprise fund. These are your utilities, your water, sewer, your electric. So it just kind of shows you over 5 years that they've remained pretty steady. Just another explanation about fund balance. Why is it such a big deal? Typically, the GFOA says you should have 16 to 25% of an unrestricted fund balance in case the state of Illinois decides not to give you your money. In case of, a tornado comes through town and you have to have access to emergency funds. It also helps your credit rating if you need to go out and issue bonds. So there's a whole myriad of reasons to have a good general fund balance. Your fund balances currently are over more than 100%. Most communities are struggling to keep 20 to 25%. Now that's the good news. Of course, there's always bad news. But I'll get to that. The first start of the bad news is the next chart. I couldn't get it white, so it's dark. I don't know why, but it's your sales tax revenue. You can see the trend line. It's going down. It's gone down every single year. It started at $235,000 in fiscal year 13 and is projected about $190,000 this year. So that's going down. Then the next chart, motor fuel tax. It's been a little all over the place. That could just be your economy because ours is based on we get it per capita. So it's really just how much, people are buying gas. It really doesn't change in terms of buying gas overall, the collection, and then we get it per capita. I can't really speak to why it's all over the place, but at least it's kind of remaining steady. Income tax, the next one, again, the trend is downward. The highest it was 5 years ago, and that's actually going to get worse with the state of Illinois. The next one is health insurance costs. Those keep going up. That would be something that I would recommend that we discuss moving forward for your next budget in terms of how we're treating our employees and possibly even, I don't know if we have time this year, but like an RFP proposal for better packages, different deductibles or co-pays, wellness programs, those kinds of things that can improve your costs. Then I just did a real quick general fund overview. It shows you where your money is being spent. It's very typical of most cities. It's in your police and your streets. If you had not the separate taxing district fire department, that would be a large chunk as well, but I know it's a separate taxing district. The next chart, police department, again, your biggest chunks are salary and dispatch. Dispatch is always going to be a big chunk, whether you do it yourself or it's through the county. Streets, I don't know what happened when I printed this. It looked better when I was looking at it. The streets, again, same thing, salaries. Now other is a whole combination of things. A lot of it is maintenance, ongoing, for streets, whether it's potholes, that kind of thing. Street lights is a big chunk. Yeah, the truck payment, which you won't have next year. General fund. This is just Parks and Rec and pool. Basically, pool is your biggest chunk when you look at your parks, your South Park, the parks besides South Park, and then South Park, and then your pool. And I'll get you better pictures. I don't know why I printed out this one. Speaking of the pool, I decided it is a special revenue, really, because you charge a fee to get in, and typically that fee should be pretty close to what it costs to operate the pool. It is not. The general fund is subsidizing the pool. That's not, that's pretty standard, but it is subsidizing it to a large amount. If you look at boy, I apologize if this did not print out well. At the bottom, we've been subsidizing over the past few years approximately $30,000, $40,000 to $50,000 a year. We're in the red. If you just pull out the two revenues, which are your admission and concessions, and then what you're spending in the pool. Next chart is just talking about, it is typical that it's subsidizing, you just need to decide, to what degree you want to subsidize it. It is a community amenity, so, that's something to think about, that it is good to have. The difficulty that I did find is that there are two special revenue funds that are going currently into the general fund that should not be in the general fund. One is your hotel tax, and the other is your business district tax. Those two things should be in their own accounts and tracked separately. So I already have Ruth working on that. However, that is going to affect your bottom line for the general fund this fiscal year, because between those two things, it's about $103,000. So that would, obviously put your general fund into a deficit budget. However, there are things, even salaries, that you can take out of the business district tax if it's work done, on your public infrastructure within your business district. So that's something that I've already talked to the department heads about, your street and water and sewer, so that moving forward, even though we're moving out of the general fund, we can still attribute some of those costs to the business district and kind of ease the general fund. In regards to the business district, think of it similar to a TIF. It's a special tax. It has to be spent very specifically and tracked very specifically. So just try to, kind of think of it as similar to a TIF, if that helps. We've collected just under $70,000 to date since early 2016. You can use it for public infrastructure, building renovations, provide financial assistance if somebody comes in and wants to develop something within the district, and again, utilize city staff. So, you can use some of that money, and that's what we'll do. We'll try to track it better to try to alleviate the general fund. The other is a hotel motel tax. It was imposed in 2002. We've collected just under $70,000 since fiscal year 13. Again, though, it is only supposed to be used to promote tourism and heads and beds, and you need to track that separately. Right now, it's being dumped into the general fund, so we need to pull that out, and Ruth is working on both of those. So again, as I said, we're right now looking at the revised general fund and what that's going to do and how we need to kind of move things to adjust expenditures, to try to ease the bottom line by the end of your fiscal year. In all three of those areas, hopefully we'll be able to track it well and still end up in the black. We just need to be more careful about it. In the enterprise funds, your enterprise funds are your water, sewer, and electric. Those also have to be tracked separately. As you'll see in the water fund, for the most part, it's been in the red every year. This year, the next to last column, that's your budget. The last column is year to date. The last 2 years, the reason it's not 6 figures in the red is because there was no depreciation taken out. We've been taking out depreciation in the tune of 6 figures, and you really should be doing that, but it wasn't done this last year and this year. So that's why it looks better. Just so you know, that's why it looks. I have the chart trend line. This time the red is the expenditures. As you can see, they've been way over what we've been taking in. It is a little better this year, but again, we didn't take depreciation. The most striking thing for me when I looked at what we were spending our money on is that only 2% of our revenues are being used on the system itself, which means we're maintaining, we're fixing water leaks, we're, running the day-to-day, treating it. But when it comes to like replacing new pipe, we have some issues with a couple of the wells. 2%, you can't even do anything with 2%. So that needs to be looked at and evaluated. That would be something that I would suggest when at the end I'm going to talk about strategic planning. Sewer fund, again, similar issue. There's been no depreciation taken. They've been in the red 6 figures as well. This year we're better, obviously, because there's no depreciation. We also have been transferring money in from the electric fund, which is that utility tax. And I'm still trying to wrap my hands around what was passed, what is supposed to be done with that tax, where it's supposed to go. Currently, it's being run through the electric fund and then transferred in the water and sewer. I don't know if that's based on the percentages of the ordinance, or...
That utility tax is old, isn't it? It's been around for
I
20
don't know,
years.
I haven't seen the ordinance yet.
I think it was in effect before you came in, wasn't it?
But that, again, that's another transfer in, that's, it's kind of like subsidizing sewer. Again, the next chart, you'll see that expenditures are way over revenues, except for the last couple of years, it has improved a little. Sewer is very similar to water. The striking thing is only 7% is going into the system itself, the collection system, which again is a big concern. You are facing some very, very difficult decisions in the very near future. We are being mandated by the IEPA to address a number of things for our NPDES permit. Some of those will have to be done within the next 6 months to 18 months, to the tune of probably close to $500,000. And then beyond that, the price goes up from there. Right now, it's just trying to deal with the effluent. That's what's coming out of the plant. Once we get past that part, then we have to deal with our combined sewer and our CSO. So the fact that it's in the state that it is now, and the things that we are facing that we're going to have to, get done, those are going to be some. I would highly recommend at some point in the next year to 2 years is a serious rate study, not just let's call everybody and see what they're charging. It's actually looking at what capital projects we have ahead of us and then how much that's going to cost. The electric fund is in better shape. It's pretty stable. Revenues have generally been slightly over expenditures. The next chart will show you they've been in the black. In 16 we ended in the red, and we're projected to end in the red this fiscal year. But generally it's in good shape. They're only putting 3% into the system, which again is a very small amount. As you'll see, the largest chunk is obviously the electricity itself. Although it's still through IMEA, we're saving quite a bit of money. It would cost us more to make it ourselves than being in IMEA right now. On the horizon, again, the use of funds, asking to move some of those funds out of the general fund. The pool being grandfathered, it being operated in the red, and there are some really, really significant repairs. I've already authorized Jill to get a quote for the wall that's buckling on the deep end of the pool. The sewer, facing the NPDES and the combined sewer overflow issues. And water, there's a lot of leaks, as you know. I'm also have big concerns about redundancy. The fact that if you have a large leak like we had a couple weeks ago and the tower runs out of water, we don't have a backup. So just discussing what those options might be. Another thing I noticed is that your investment income is very, very low. You're not letting your money work for you. I would highly recommend, and I will be bringing you some proposals on how to let your money work for you, because right now it's just sitting very stagnant, earning very little. Other things to consider moving forward, maybe next year for discussion. There's little things like your insurance, your deductible is really low. You might have some savings there. Your health insurance is a big thing right now in terms of what you're providing to your employees. Street resurfacing, looking at a capital fund or something getting on a regular rotation. Maintenance of South Park is an issue. IMRF is underfunded. We're not currently keeping up with, I think we're at about, I want to say 77%, something like that. And then TIF 2, it's going to expire in a couple years, and the developer is near his cap of getting his reimbursement. And there's a minor debt service out there that we could pay off. So then that brings you to, I think I mentioned in my interview, I think strategic plan is extremely important. You are facing some very difficult decisions, especially infrastructure-wise, in the next few years. And I think it would be helpful for you to decide what the priority is and then pass that on to staff, because it also helps us put those goals, put money to those goals. So we know, well, is a pool more important than South Park? Is a South Park more important than water? Is sewer more important than streets? You know, having that discussion and trying to set some priorities would be extremely helpful. So that's kind of what I found. I know it's a lot to absorb. We'll probably have to watch the tape again as I went so fast, but I'm open for questions, and generally I want to reiterate to everyone listening, you're in good shape, but you will face tough decisions in your utilities and probably tough decision in the next few years if you want to maintain that. Because what you don't want to do is start doing operating deficits where you're taking out of your fund balance every year to keep doing what you're doing. You want to be able to try to, maintain. So I hope that helps. I know that you were interested in getting a picture and knowing where you were at, so I know it's a lot to absorb, but call me, text me, or you ask questions now.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for this. I
Yes.
appreciate it. This is a lot, I'm sure, to do.
Does anybody have any questions for Steve?
I don't think right now I do. I need to go home and read it for a minute.
Absorb it.
Right.
Do we have any other non-agenda items or other business?
Yeah, we have a police report, we haven't had that in a while.
I don't know, Terry, do you have something for us?
I can share with you a couple things that we, obviously, some people have noticed that we have a new car and we're getting the arrival of our squad cars. And to make sure people realize, because there were some questions, I think there was a total of 5 cars at one time assigned to the police department. Those will all be gone. In fact, some of them are pretty poor shape. They're going to have to tow them to the company that's taking all those over. We'll be down to the 2 new Ford Explorers and 1 white Crown Victoria that we have out there. And then our maintenance costs will be really down. So that's one of the big things that we're addressing right now. Other than that, I've been working on some more of the ordinance violations, addressing some of those things. Still working on policies and procedures with the goal of trying to trying to push for accreditation by the end of the year, or the end of the year period of time for me being here, which will be February. I think that's primarily it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Make a move to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call it.
McKinley?
Yes.
Westline?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Motion carries.